Good evening, everybody. It's Monday night at 6:30. It's the Rabble Network. That must mean it's the women's show. And although the women haven't had a game this week, we've decided to do a bit of a special show for you. Delighted to be joined tonight by David Moloney, who is the editorial director of Yearbook and also the writer, publisher, the whole 9 yards of this book you can see to my left-hand side here, the Women's Football Fan Yearbook 2026. David, thank you very, very much for joining us on the Ramble tonight. Oh. Can you hear us, David? Are you there? David, I think you have a problem with your audio, I think. David, can you hear us okay? I'll take him out, put him back in, see if that's any better. David, is that any better? Hello, David. Can you hear us? David, try and say something. Alan, you've had a look at the book. Why was that short, David? You've had a look at the book. What's your impressions of the very brief glimpse you've had of the book?
I had a brief flick through the book, and I was very impressed. A lot of work's obviously went into the book. It's not something you see so often. It's a sort of football yearbooks you used to maybe grow up looking through. And it's always great to see a wee bit of story behind each team. A wee bit of background on the team, and a wee look back at some of the players that have played for a team over the years. So definitely worth picking up and having a look at.
Yeah, and Demi, you've only seen a little bit of it. What did you make of it? Obviously, you've seen the Rangers page. What do you think of the detail and the stuff on the Rangers page?
Yeah, I thought it was really good, and especially that obviously it mentions a lot of it mentions the 2 cup finals last season and the sort of players that were key to the sort of success in those, and it touches on this season and who we have in what position, and it mentions the young ones and that they're rising talent. So yeah, I think it's very good.
Yeah, I mean it is. Well, I think David's just come out. Hopefully, you'll come back in again. It is. For me, it's quite good. It's got lots of information on all the SWL, all the WSL clubs, and the English Championship clubs as well. Obviously, the Scottish clubs. We'll try David again. Hopefully, this time we can be in business. Hello, David.
Yeah.
There we go. We can hear you as well. Fantastic. Don't know what happened there. Anyway, as we were saying,
stick with books.
Yeah, thank you very much. I've got a copy of that as well. Funny that, eh? Yeah. So we've just done a wee quick sort of Alan was singing the praises of the book and Demi's saying how impressed she was with the Rangers content because that's all she's seen, because I sent her a picture of that earlier. So what was the genesis of what was the idea behind it? Because obviously I'm of an age, annuals were a thing when I was a kid. Demi will have no clue what an annual is. Alan probably remembers annuals. When I was a kid, it was the Roy the Rovers annual, it was the Tiger annual, all these sorts of things. I'm assuming that annuals are making a bit of a comeback, a bit like the vinyl record is, a bit like other kind of retro things, if you like. So why the Women's Football Fan Yearbook for 2026?
Sure. No, good question. You've pretty much nailed it there, Will. I mean, I was a reader of Roy the Rovers and Tiger and Shoot and all those magazines and annuals back in the day. There's definitely a part of that in this book. I think annuals, there do seem to be a lot of annuals still around. If you go into your WH Smith or whatever it's called now, around this time of year, I think there's still a market. People our sort of age like to give them as gifts to the younger folk, and we're trying to get into that sort of market. But I tell you what it was. I've been following Arsenal. I'll come out with it and admit it for a couple of years now. Mainly because my partner's daughter really got into the women's game after the World Cup a couple of years ago, and so we started going along to watch games. But I grew up watching the men's game and being a season ticket holder at the Arsenal for since I was a kid. And I remember thinking, I think we were at an FA Cup game against it was the Arsenal women against Watford women, and a team that I feel that I know quite, or I feel that I knew the club from a sort of men's team perspective, but actually looking at the fans that were there, the Watford fans, the team, obviously it's a very, very different team, very different club, different history, and I kind of struck me there didn't seem to be too much out there that you could sort of really go to look up what the history of the different women's teams were, and the sort of culture of the teams. And so the idea of the book is to try and capture a little bit of that for all as many of the teams as we could make room for.
Yeah, I mean, what I really like about the book, away from the individual teams, is the glossary of the history of the tournaments. The winners and the losers of all the. I mean, I forgot that the Women's Scottish Cup final, for example, Scottish Cup has been a thing for a long, long time. The Women's FA Cup's been on the go for a long, long time. And even just looking at that, I mean, I'm a rugby league fan and I like St Helens. I had no idea St Helens had a successful women's football team in the 90s. No idea. Sorry, in the 80s. I mean, they won the FA Cup once. I had absolutely no idea. But I know now because I think as a reference book, this is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, well, thank you. It is. I mean, it's shocking. It was shocking how difficult it was to source a lot of this information. I mean, I pretty much my life was taken over by this book for a few months in the start of this year, and you'll notice in the Scottish section there's cup finals there where they know who won, but they don't even seem to know what the score was for some of these games, and it's a real shame that the archiving of these sorts of things and the records have just been lost to the mist of time. And maybe there are some people out there who could fill in some of these blanks, but they're not easy to find. But yeah, it's a great history there. It just hasn't had the coverage, I guess.
Yeah, I know the actual, the looking at the figuring out the facts. I know that's something that Alan was very interested in. He mentioned that to me, so I want to throw it over to you. I know you had an interest in that.
No, listen, I'm one of these people who loves some stats and some facts and that, but from concept, from you coming up with the idea of this yearbook, how long did it take you from the idea to actually getting it ready to send away to printers?
There's a question. So the idea of the book. So we commissioned Becca and Jade, the artists, who incidentally are absolutely critical to how this book is and the nature of the book. Just brilliant what they've done. Commissioned them, must have been sort of towards the end of season before last, so sort of summer 2024. So we kind of had the plan for the book since then, but I didn't really get going with the writing of it until probably around about the new year, just partly because there's lots of other things to do and you just don't really have a concept of how long it's going to take. I wish I started a lot earlier, but in some senses you can't, because the aim of the book is to keep it as up to date as practically possible, and it only really starts to take shape once you see how the teams are doing and the season's drawing to a close, and you can sort of get a sense of who's going to be in what league and so on. But it was January through to May, June. I was finding my weekends just disappear. Yeah, writing the book, and it's, you know, I set about, I just say, right, I'm going to concentrate on this team this week, and then it's just diving into the history of each club, and I mean, you can just trawl and trawl and trawl the internet, books. There was a series of books, Women's Football Yearbook, that is much, you know, so it's a very different sort of book. It's much more just sort of much more stats than the kind of the culture and the stories that I've tried to get into this one. Books like that have been very, very useful. Chris Slegg, Tom Gary. You know, there are some books out there. So long since I've taken these books off the shelf. Just caused an avalanche by taking that one down. Yeah, it's I'd say 5 or 6 months of fairly intense work while trying to do the day job. The advantage of being both publisher and writer meant that I could use some of my sort of my working hours, official 9 to 5 working hours, to work on the book. I'm not getting a royalty for it or anything, so I'm not justified.
That must certainly have helped, but you know, I obviously note that you say in the book that you printed it before the transfer window closes, and you know, it's a wee bit of fun to try and guess where you stopped actually writing the book.
Yeah.
You know, by gauging it on various transfers that weren't mentioned or were mentioned. But how difficult is that to try and pick the right time to stop and actually get it finished in order to get it out in time?
Yeah, it was tricky. I mean, we were led really by print deadlines and wanting to get the book out as close as possible to the start of the season. I mean, it's frustrating. I knew it would happen. As soon as it goes off to press, then some big transfer story will come through, or someone will lose their manager, or some major. One of the things we were really keen to do was to try and get the kits as up to date as possible. So we got it was the Glasgow City kit. You know, they announced that really, really late in the day. This the collaboration they have with Foodies, and well, yeah, you'll see there. That's an earlier image where they had their old strip on with the black trim.
Yeah.
And so we just changed it at the last minute with the white trim kit there. Things like that. But I will remember this if we're talking about the old comics and annuals. I remember I loved collecting the football stickers back in the day, you know, the Panini football stickers, and often they'd be out of date. You know, by the time the album comes out, they'd have sort of planned the whole thing sort of much earlier. And I think even now, I know the Panini stickers they do for the women's game now, certainly for the WSL album. Last year they had Jonas Eidevall as in the sticker book long after, you know, by the time it was printed, he was long gone, and you know, I think most fans weren't particularly happy getting his sticker in their packs. But
yeah, see, that's part of the reason, David, I like doing things like this, so that people, you know, that watch it will realise that there's going to be inconsistencies in publications like this, simply because, you know, there's deadlines you've got to meet, and obviously it's a commercial project, so it's got to be printed and ready to go.
yeah,
I would imagine for Christmas, you know, for the Christmas market. So you have to, as Alan says, you have to just say this is when we're cutting off, and that's it. But the disclaimer in the book, as Alan says, really good. Try and guess when we stopped, because it was before the transfer window closed.
yeah.
That was quite nice. What I also thought was really nice in the book is the fact my name's in it. I'm very impressed with that, because
wouldn't be the same without it. Well, I mean, this is the other key thing. You know, it's Becca and Jade, the artists, but also the contributions from the fans, and that was the other sort of major aspect of what we did. Going back to your earlier question, it's I did, so although I didn't start writing it until January, I put out this questionnaire for for fans of each of the club to just give their perspectives, their experiences, because what we really wanted to do with this book was to try and sort of capture the culture of the club, and that's a really difficult thing to define, but I think that just comes through people's stories, their favorite songs, what to eat and drink at the ground, that sort of thing, and particular memories. What memories are you most proud of for your team? That kind of thing. And I have to say, got a really good, got really good feedback from Rangers fans, from certain clubs. It was easier than others to get the feedback, and I think that's just that's a question of access. I was able to sort of put out a questionnaire, I think, with Rangers through the Facebook supporters group and certain.
Yeah, I think it was the women's supporters group who actually one of the girls on that. She's actually on our podcast. Laura that runs it used to be on our podcast, but she's too busy with the supporters group to join us now. Right. But our sidekick Car's normally on with her, but she's on holiday this week. Otherwise, she'd be here talking to you as well. So that's where I saw it. I saw it on the Facebook page, and well, I'm just going to fill this out, and I hope it helps. Yeah. And when I had a look through it, it was I think it's a really nice touch for you to put in the, thank you to all the people that answered the questionnaire. And I mean that would have been enough, but sending us all out a complimentary copy of the book's just off the charts. I mean, that's fantastic. That's really, really good. I was really impressed with that. But I know Demi's got something to ask you about something you touched on there earlier about the the history of the clubs that you put in the books. I know Demi's got something to touch on about that.
Yeah, so obviously I was haven't only seen part of it, but I've sort of read different bits of it through photos that Dad sent, and sort of looking at 2027, 2028, and the future. Obviously, a fair bit of the individual teamwork, the individual team pages. Sorry, it looks at their history. Now, obviously, the history is that's already in the clubs. That's not going to change. So going forward, would you look to get more sort of up to date stats, or would you want to dig into different bits of the sort of club history?
I asked myself this question. Yeah, you're absolutely right. This is one of the if you're creating something that you're going to repeat year after year. I mean, the story for most of the clubs is what it is, and unless I've got a whole lot of facts wrong, which hopefully I haven't, that's not going to change too much. So yeah, I think we'll add to it, obviously, a little bit as things go on and based on what happens this season. But I think we'll try and find a slightly different format, different way of presenting it, try and look at different aspects. I'd also quite like to bring in some more teams. I mean, I'd like to be able to do more on the Welsh and Northern Irish teams, possibly a little bit of coverage of some of the bigger European teams. I don't know, sort of internationals. I've got a few ideas bubbling away for different ways of doing it, but I think just want to try and keep the essence of the book as it is. But if you have bought it before, make it interesting enough that you want to buy it again.
Yeah, I mean, David, for me, what I think is really nice is the fact that for each of the clubs, certainly the Scottish and English clubs, not so much the Irish and Welsh, because there are little bits on them. Is obviously you put where they play, but also the ones that, for example, Liverpool, they play at the Totally Wicked Stadium, which is no longer called that. It's now called the Brewdog Stadium because the sponsors have changed. Going back to the when you cut it off, but that only changed last week because the Totally Wicked sponsorship deal ran out. But also 3 other games are scheduled to be played at Anfield, so people that are looking to go and see them know to just check. Look, it might not be at St Helens, it might be at Anfield, because you've got all the fixtures up there, in the front couple of pages of the book, which is also very, very good. And it's also, you've put the dates of the weekends, because nobody knows at the time of publication which game's going when. Because I mean, I think the English game's very much like the game up here; it can change basically a drop of a hat.
Yeah, exactly. I think all these things you have to double check. But I think I find this guide quite useful. We've got it photocopied. We've got that guide and the team tracker chart on our own fridge. here, and yeah, it's interesting seeing the English alongside the Scottish and the Welsh fixtures as well, and you know, maybe that just helps bring it all together and create a more sort of holistic picture of the whole thing.
Yeah. What I mean, talking about I'm sorry, Alan and Demi, I'm just going to take over for a wee minute here. What I found really interesting, having looked at it quite closely, was the Irish and the Welsh. There's clubs in there that don't play in the Irish and the Welsh men's league, but they play in the women's league. For example, Derry City, they play in the Republic of Ireland, but they play in the Northern Irish Women's League. And obviously in Wales, you've got Swansea, Cardiff, and Wrexham, who are part of the English pyramid, but are in the Welsh. But I think that's quite fascinating as well, and probably some I certainly didn't realise.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, Will, I found it so interesting, and these are things that we don't commonly know. I mean, unless you're already a real expert, it's and we think as fans of the men's game that we know it all, and you know, we've been fortunate enough to have huge. I mean, it's, you know, oversaturated coverage of football all our lives, but the women's game, it's there's so much to discover and to learn, and really, really interesting histories for you know, for so many of these clubs and the players, and yeah, I think that the Welsh and Irish teams, yeah, it was like sort of just a whole new world of new teams and clubs that I didn't know about before, and yeah.
Yeah, some of the,
you know, it's
yeah,
nice
some of the nicknames as well. I know, Alan, that's something you picked up on when you were looking at the Rangers page, about the nicknames.
Yeah, that's it. Tell me, have I got that wrong?
Yeah, but was it the Blue Bells? You know, it's not a nickname I've ever heard myself. You know, but if maybe Will's been the contributor, you know, I should direct the question at him.
No, not at all. It's not something I would have used. But having said that, we've never been known as the Bluebells to our knowledge. I can understand.
I'll have to check my sources, and I'll find out where I got that from and let you know.
I can understand that it would make sense, because we do sing a song called "The Bluebells Are Blue," and bells would be for women. And yeah, I mean, it does make a lot of sense. And we've got a question here from one of our normal contributors. In the book, is there anything about the Scottish women who are in the national team's Hall of Fame? And if so, has David been to Hampden to see the players mentioned? So I don't think there is anything about the Hall of Fame, and I certainly don't remember seeing that. But David, have you ever been to Hampden to see any of the, or have you ever been to Hampden?
I have, yep. For the, what was it? It would have been to see Scotland v England way back. I can't remember. Trying to think what year it was. When we had that playoff, the men's team.
Yeah, the 2-2 game.
Yeah. I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
Quite a while ago now, but no, I haven't been to see any of the players there. No.
Have you? Here's a question for you, leading off. Have you been to a women's game in Scotland? Have you been to any women's games in Scotland?
No, not yet. Still only a couple of years into the women's game, but my partner's Scottish, living down here with me now, but I'm sure it won't be long.
Okay.
So we try to follow the Scotland games on the telly, but yeah.
This is a question you can refuse to answer if you want. But which side of the coin does your partner fall on, given that your partner's Scottish?
You don't want to know about that.
Right, okay. We'll just say
I lived in Scotland for 5 years. I was at university at Stirling. It's very interesting to see how the women's team there has taken off. But so I went to see Stirling Albion quite a few times. That's all I can really say in terms of allegiances in Scotland.
Yep. I think Demi's playing football in Stirling tomorrow, potentially, aren't you?
Potentially on Wednesday, yeah. Unsure.
Yeah.
Dundee, is that?
Pardon?
For Dundee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a cup game there, so
Brilliant. I'll look out for it.
Yeah, I think she might be getting co-opted in because it's. I think a lot of the first team players are away, so Demi might have to fill a void. So that could be quite interesting. That could be quite interesting. So as we mentioned, David, you're an Arsenal men and women's fan. So Arsenal played quite a lot of their games they play all their WSL games at the Emirates, don't they? What sort of crowds are they getting?
So generally, so we've had 3 games this season. So we've got Chelsea coming up in a couple of weeks. That'll be the big game, and I know we've sold 50,000 so far for that game.
Wow.
Yeah, I know it's pretty mind blowing, really. So the last home game there we had was against Brighton, so that was obviously a lower one, but I can't remember exactly what the attendance was, but I think it would have been around about 35,000 perhaps.
See, that's what mystifies me. That they pull in that for a league game, but when we travelled down last year for the Champions League, it was at Boreham Wood with a capacity of 4,500.
Yeah,
which I thought was because we thought Arsenal were going to go to the Emirates. I mean, I've been to the Emirates. I was at the Arsenal tournament when Rangers played there, however many years ago that was, the men's team. We thought we've drawn Arsenal. That's a nice trip to the Emirates.
Yeah.
And although there was a decent Rangers contingent at Boreham Wood, there'd been an awful lot more had they played it at the Emirates. I just find it quite strange that they're pulling all that in for a league game, but for a Champions League qualifier, they go somewhere else.
Yeah. So I think that was a little sort of qualification tournament, wasn't it? There were 4 teams, and well, I mean, I don't know what the reasoning is, and it may have just been it wasn't possible to schedule 4 games at the Emirates in such a short space of time. Well, who knows? But yeah, you're right. I mean, I think they certainly could have filled it, and I think Rangers would have brought a good contingent as well, if with more space.
Yeah, we took a few. I mean, Alan, you were down at that. How was you've been to a few women's games in England, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been to a few, and a born fact I gave everybody last week was I've actually seen Alice Griffiths and our sister Mairead Griffiths score their first professional goals in football this year. I saw Mairead score for Manchester United in the FA Cup in February, and then I saw Alice last week score her first goal in her career at Ibrox. But I was very impressed with the setup down at Bournemouth, and it struck me as it's obviously been massive for the growth of Arsenal and the women's team by really taking control of a smaller venue, investing in it, making sure facilities are really good, and it's a really welcoming place. It's a great setup at Bournemouth. I don't think the tickets were the easiest to navigate in terms of buying them, but it's clearly been massive. We've seen Chelsea do the same with Kings Meadow, and then grown into the point where they've outgrown these grounds and need to go and play more games at the Emirates and Stamford Bridge. But you'll have delved a lot deeper in being an Arsenal fan and discovering the women's game in the last couple of years. But how much does it feel like home at Bournemouth for Arsenal?
Yeah, it really does. I mean, there's a very, very different atmosphere there, but it's which I think they actually, you can't quite capture that sort of small ground, sort of really intense feeling at a big stadium like the Emirates, particularly as I think the nature of a lot of the fans that will come to the Emirates games are, be people coming as one-offs and families and so on. But I think that there's a slight sadness in the fact that there are fewer games there now. I think there'll still be a few cup games played there. It's got some of the drawbacks of a smaller club. The toilet situation is pretty terrible. Gotta say, but if you get, I sometimes sit in the stand along the side, but when we can, we'll go in the North Bank, which is the kind of home terrace end, and the atmosphere there is absolutely fantastic. I mean, it really, really is sort of bouncing. They've got a great kind of singing culture there.
I saw that.
Sorry, say again?
I saw that. I stayed for all 4 games in that mini tournament, and so I was in that North Bank Terrace when Arsenal played Rosenborg in the final, and the atmosphere was absolutely electric. It was brilliant. And listen, it was obviously tough for us to watch the girls get down and come up against 2 excellent teams. And it just it wasn't our time, but. Absolutely fantastic atmosphere, really great setup. I think people generally found it quite easy to get to Bournemouth. I was fortunate I found a hotel. It was a 5-minute walk away, or 10 or 15-minute walk if I took a wrong turn. But it's a really great setup, and it's clear how important that's became to Arsenal to have that place to grow.
And the club's got an arrangement with Bournemouth, so they play the under-21s play all their home games there. The men's under-21s. I'm pretty sure, I don't know whether this still happens, but the men's first team often play a pre-season friendly against the Bournemouth team, and that's certainly used to be an annual fixture. So there's a good relationship there. Bournemouth themselves actually they got promoted.
Saw that
last season. Yeah, so they're sort of on the up, and they were able to invest in their facilities a bit over the summer. So yeah, it's a really good place. We really, really like going there. There's a pub I gave them a mention in the book in Bournemouth, the Good Companion, where it's a real sort of Arsenal women supporters pub.
We were in it.
And
we made an appearance.
You made an appearance.
we met the Kim Little fan club outside there as well. So
yeah, we did. That was actually quite funny because there was a Scottish girl there with a Scotland flag with Kim Little on it, and she'd obviously been in the pub for a while.
Yeah,
and she comes from a place in Scotland called Elgin. She comes from Elgin.
Oh yeah.
Right? And one of the girls that we know that goes to the women's games, she comes from a little town just up from Elgin called Forres. And she was here to watch Rangers. Yeah. And this girl from Elgin went, "What do you mean she's from Forres?" And she was that drunk she just couldn't get it into her head that somebody had come from Forres to watch Rangers play Arsenal at Boreham Wood. And she'd come from Elgin to watch Arsenal play Rangers at Boreham Wood. It was one of those surreal you had to be there moments.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Well, instantly that reminds you. I mean, one of the real one of the joys. Well, as an Arsenal fan, but just in researching the book was it was in writing the section on Hibernian, and I was desperate to get a picture of Kim from her sort of her early years there, sort of starting out at Hibernian. There was a guy eventually got in touch with Hibernian who was able to get me a whole lot of photos from those sort of early, must have been around about early 2006, 2007. I can't remember exactly when it was. Turned up some really, really, really nice set of photographs that we could use as reference for getting a picture of young Kim in the book.
David, Kim Little went to my high school, so she,
did she?
The first team she played for was the team I used to coach, and then she played for my high school. So when Scotland had the Euros qualifiers, and I want to say it was 2019, we had like STVR school to be like, how does it feel to be watching Kim Little? And she used to come and speak at our award ceremonies and stuff. I think she still does, actually.
Oh, that must be incredible. She's honestly, what a player she is, and such a great character. And you see her interviewed, and I mean, just brilliant for her that she won she got that Champions League last year. I mean, that's what a career she's had.
Well, my claim to fame is Erin Cuthbert used to follow me on Twitter. I don't know if she still does, but when she was a Rangers youth, she used to follow me on Twitter, and that was my claim to fame when she went to Chelsea and became the superstar that she is now.
Yeah.
Because I mean, obviously, women's football in Scotland is more in its infancy than it is in England. I mean, the team's only really turned professional 5 years ago, sort of coming out of COVID, as you say in the book as well, Rangers started taking it seriously coming out of COVID. Because if you look back at the history of the Cups, I mean, some of the teams, Cove Rangers, who are local to me here, they won the Scottish Cup 3 years in a row. I'm not even sure they've still got a women's team, and if they have, they play way, way down the pyramid now. It just shows you how much it's changed since, the Scottish clubs are taking it seriously. And something else that I noticed, and I knew it just didn't really compute, that obviously I would say 95% of the teams, certainly in the English teams and the Scottish teams, are affiliated with a men's team. You've got Arsenal and Liverpool and Rangers and Celtic, and the one in Scotland which we all know about, obviously, as you referenced earlier, is Glasgow City there on their own. But you've also got Durham, who do well considering that they're basically a university team, and London City Lionesses. Now, obviously, you're London based. What sort of following the London City get, because they're not affiliated to anybody? Because West Ham have got a team, and Chelsea and Spurs, but London City just sit out there on their own.
Yeah. I don't think the following's that big. I mean, they kind of spun off from Millwall back in the day, but very much but Millwall still exists, and so it was a new club, a new startup, and they've got a lot of investment now from Michelle Campbell. No, so they play at Bromley, which is not too far from Croydon, where I live. I actually went to the ground, Hayes Lane, last year for it was a game with another team I support, a team called Clapton Community Football Club, and their women's team were playing a game against, I can't remember whether it was against Bromley, but a really, really nice stadium that's half built. They're still building. I saw the game against Lionesses against Manchester United near the start of the season, and one side of the ground is still being built there, but they're putting a lot of money into it. But I don't think their crowds are huge yet, and I think that they're quite big on marketing. They're putting a lot of effort into it. I think, sort of trying to build the team up, and obviously going for a sort of wide London.
I just wonder, because obviously Glasgow City's got a fairly decent following in Scotland, considering that. I mean, they used to win it, as you know from putting the stats together. They used to win everything in Scotland until Rangers and Celtic and Hearts have started taking it a bit more seriously. I mean, Glasgow City won the league something like 14 years in a row because everybody else just didn't really bother. You know what I mean? And I just wonder how London City were in comparison to that. Given that Arsenal and Chelsea and all these, they've started taking it more seriously recently, but only in the last few years. But we're rapidly running out of time here. I said this would be about half an hour, 40 minutes. David, it's been an absolute pleasure. I know Demi's got the most important question of the night to ask you.
Yes, well, two questions actually. First one is, when is the book available? And the second one is, where can it be purchased?
Excellent questions. So the book is available now. You can buy it, you can order it through your local bookshop is probably the best thing to do. Support your local bookshop. Just go in, show them the cover. Well, I won't bother giving you the ISBN now. They'll be able to find it. They'll be able to find it on their systems and order it in. You can order it through Amazon. You can order it through our own website, which is hearnbooks.com. And I should have been prepared for this. If I send you a link, maybe you could put it out there. There's a discount code that you can use if you want to buy it through our website. Sorry, I haven't got it immediately handy, but if I send that to you, Will, might you be able
Absolutely, we could do that, David. Just make that out, yeah.
That will get you 30% off, which I think makes it. You'll still have the post and packing, but I think overall makes it cheaper than buying through Amazon. So, that's worth doing.
Yeah. I mean, the cover price, I believe, is 20 quid as well. Certainly Amazon are selling it at 20 quid. I'm guessing that's the cover price on it.
Yeah. So, it is, you were talking about annuals earlier. It's a little higher than you pay for a football annual in a shop, but I think you'll find, there's so much more original content in there than just your normal sort of football ad.
Yeah, I mean, for me, having been the one that's hogged it since it arrived in my possession, I'll say I've let Alan see it. I forgot to let Demi see it. I haven't read it cover to cover. I had a good look through it. It's certainly worth £20 of anybody's money, because it's it really is a fantastic book. Even just as a reference book to keep on the shelf, and you go, I'm going somewhere. Where do they play? Let's go and see what we can do. I think from a reference point of view, it's absolutely fantastic. It's certainly something I'll be looking out for on a yearly basis. I don't really do Christmas presents, but Demi, every Christmas I'll be looking for that. Okay, there we go.
Oh,
There we go.
Thank you. Glad you enjoyed it.
So, and there's a sniper, one of our regular contributors, this is the only outlet he's got for women's football is our podcast. He got interested in the women's game because we started doing this podcast on the network.
Great.
So he's saying thanks very much. He's enjoyed this tonight. JD saying, David, thank you very much for the pod. So there is a few of the regulars in there. One or two of them that we see at the games, one or two of them that just watch it from afar. But it's always a pleasure to have them. But David, can't thank you enough for doing this. Hopefully, there's final word from Keith Bryce. Great pod tonight, something different. Well done all. Thanks, David, for taking the time to come on. Keith's a great supporter of women's football. He's got an autistic son who does tremendous with coming on, with we're going to the women's game. That's what he did. And fair play to Keith, because Keith's a Hearts fan, but he takes Fraser to all the Rangers games. So, it's a fair play to him for that, and it's Fraser's come on leaps and bounds as a result of that. So, everybody's appreciating you coming on tonight, David. So it's absolutely fantastic. Hopefully, it boosts the sales of your book. It certainly puts it out there. We'll have it shared on all our socials and that as well. So, Demi, as always, thank you very much. I'll probably speak to you soon. Alan, we'll speak to you soon. David, if you just hang on there, once we're finished, we'll have a wee chat. But again, thank you so much for coming on.
Really appreciate
in the
it.
chat.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Main pod's coming on in precisely 3 minutes. That's why I'm hurrying out of here. And the women's show will be back next Monday to talk about, hopefully, a decisive win over Hearts at the Orion. Good night.